We are here to celebrate Valerie Bloom. What can I say about Valerie? So Valerie is a poet, author and performer and was born in Clarendon, Jamaica in 1956, the eldest girl in a family of 9. Valerie came to the UK in 1979 where she attended the University of Kent to study history with African and Caribbean studies. Inspired and influenced by Jamaican poet, writer and folklorist Louise Bennett Coverley, who popularised Jamaican English, what we call Jamaican patois. Valerie has been a literary custodian of this rich tradition through her writing over the last 30 plus years, enabling it to be celebrated as a vibrant and valid form of English. The author of several volumes of poetry for adults and children, picture books, pre-teen and teenage novels, and stories for children. Valerie has also edited various collections of children's poetry, as well as writing articles for teaching periodicals and for newspapers such as The Guardian and The Independent. She has also written lyrics for the World Jazz Ensemble, the Grand Union Orchestra. Valerie has presented poetry programmes for BBC Radio 3 and BBC Radio 4 and has contributed to various radio and television programmes such as Fine Lines, Woman's Hour and The Verb. Her poetry has been included in the GCSE and Caribbean exam syllabuses and is in over 600 anthologies worldwide. Valerie's many awards include the Poetry Book Society Choices for Hot Like Fire 2002, Whoop and Shout 2003, and Nestle Smarties Bronze Award for Fruits 2000, and the Clipper Award for Poetry Book Stars with Flaming Tales. She was awarded an honorary master's degree from the University of Kent, where she now lives, isn't it, in Kent, is that right? And received an MBE in the 2008 New Year's Honours List. Valerie. Now, Valerie, you were born in Jamaica.
I was born in Jamaica.
Into an Adventist family.
Yes.
And was exposed to Wordsworth, Shakespeare, and the King James Bible. But also Louise Bennett Coverley, or more funnily known as Miss Lou, who inspired you to write in Jamaican patois, which you weren't even allowed to speak at school, though at home. What made you connect with creative writing, particularly poetry, from such an early age? We're going to talk a bit more about that later. And what did it allow you to express?
I was a bookworm from birth. And I read voraciously. If it was so bad that if I was walking down the street and I saw a scrap of newspaper, I'd have to pick it up and read it. It was that bad. And I used to get into trouble because I would sit up all night when everybody else was asleep. I would be under the sheets with a flashlight reading until early morning. And then that's when I'd go to sleep. So I would be late for school every day. And it got so bad that when I was doing my exams, I should have been in the exam room. I was fast asleep. Luckily, we lived quite close to the school, so the teacher sent someone to wake me, and I got there in time to do the exams. So I think from reading, it led naturally to writing. But also, I used to see my mother reading. She read a lot as well, and so when she was reading, she was lost to everybody else. So we'd be talking to her and she would be just there laughing to herself and doing things. So of course that instilled in us a desire to find out what she found so good in books. And yeah, so those two main influences.
We'll talk a bit about your mum and your grandmother later. And you call Louise Bennett Coverley, also known as Miss Lou, as I mentioned, your hero. For those who are unfamiliar with Miss Lou and her wit, literary and verbal dexterity, or if you haven't seen her in a while, I think it feels fitting to share some of her craft with us now. And so what we're going to do is screen something featuring Miss Lou. I'm not sure, I don't know what year it is, where she does a recitation of her poem, Dutty Tough.
We chose this poem because it is very relevant to the times now, though these verses were written many years ago. But dirty tough means not just that the ground is hard, but the times are hard. So it's rain or fall, but dirty tough. The rain is falling, but the ground is hard. And dirty is not just a corruption of the word dirty. It's a real African word, D-O-T, dirty, which means the ground, dirty tough. Sun a shine, but things not bright. Do a pot a boil, bickle not enough. River flood and rain a fall. Rain a fall, but dirty tough. Nowadays the times so hard. When you ask Maddie how them do, them afraid you take it, tell them back so them not answer you. No care how much we da work for hard times, still in our shot. We da fight, our time a beat we. They might raise we wages, but £1 gone and pound we pay and we not feel no merriment. For £10 gone and pound we food and £10 pound we rent. Saltfish gone up, mackerel gone up, beef and pork gone up same way. And when rice and butter ready, them just go up a holiday. Cloth, boot, pin and needle gone up. Ice bread taxes, water rate, kerosene, oil, gasoline gone up. And the pound devaluate. The price of bread gone up so high that we have to agree to cut we hype and bread and all turn dumpling refugee. And all them magas maddy, whether go on like fatty sin, all them they whether fast with me, I left them to dumpling. Sun a shine and pot a boil, but things not bright. Bickle not enough. River flood, rain a fall, but water scarce and dirty tough.
The power of seeing such a engaged audience and so many black people, and particularly black women, and this is obviously centering pioneering black women.
I was a newly trained teacher, and I went back to my school where I grew up in Jamaica, in Frankfield, a little country school. And so they gave me, I was an English teacher, and they gave me this class to teach. And in Jamaica, the system is they're graded, so 8 is the highest academically, and it goes all the way down the alphabet. So this was 10V. And I went into the class, and there were mainly boys and girls who were much bigger than I am. And as you can see, I'm not an Amazon, so it wasn't hard. But they were climbing the walls, literally. And I tried to talk to them. Nobody listened. They were throwing things. They were just out of control. And I realized that was why most of the teachers who had 10V just sat in the staff room and didn't go to the class. So the next day I went again, the same thing. And then the third day I, in desperation, took Miss Lou's book into the class and I just read a poem. And one by one they just sat down and listened. And then they said another one. I said, no, it's your time, just thinking on my feet. And they were so good. And so I thought, well, we can't just keep this. So I thought I would take them to the National Festival. So we went to the National Festival. They won gold medal with this poem. And the next year, lots of them were put into the A class. Because the thing is, they were just bored. And the thing about it is, this spoke to them because it was their language. Yeah, and they understood what was going on. And a few years later, I came to England, and then when I went back a few years later, I met one of them in Kingston, and he was on his way to exhibit his work in the National Gallery.
Wow.
And that was all thanks to Miss Lou.
I mean, how do you feel about, I mean, it's funny because you saying that, because there's so much synchronicity with your life and full circle moments with your life. But how do you feel about being called Miss Lou's successor?
I'm not worthy.
Why do you say that?
I mean, She was just in another level. I mean, when I first started, I have to say most of my poems, if not all, were just like Miss Lou's poems. And in fact, I wrote a poem which won a medal in the National Festival, so they put it in the anthology for the next year. And so there were school children all over the island reciting this poem because it looked like a new Miss Lou's poem. And they used to put the gold medal winners on the television. So I would turn on the television as a teenager, and there would be somebody reciting my poem. And so for a long time, before I found my own voice, this was the sort of poem I would write. And it was all because of my hero.
I want to jump now because I want to give some background to what you've just said about the poems and everything else, because I think what Valerie's admitting to say is how young she was when she saw her poem on the TV and everything else. So your first poem, which was in Patois, was published in the Gleaner. Is that correct?
No, the first poem, I think it was in English.
Right, okay.
It was published.
The first one, is that the one that was published in the Gleaner?
In the Gleaner, yes.
And then you're a few years later, and you were 12?
Well,
were you?
that was
Yes, you were 12 years old. So I think and you were writing for quite a bit of time by this time. And then a few years later, your poem, Mecca Catcher, Let Me Catch Her, won a bronze medal in the national festival, was included in the festival anthology, which led to these children who won the gold medal. And so, you're a little sort of poetry rock star at this point without leaving your parish. That must have been pretty exciting. And how did your parents take it?
Oh, they're always proud of our
Yeah.
achievements, yes. Yeah, they were very proud of it. But there's a sort of unspoken rule in where I grew up that you don't speak too highly of your children in case, you understand.
Yes.
And so I remember when I passed my 11 plus, and my mom was so proud, and she was telling the neighbor, she goes, "The dry head gal passed the exam."
And I want to talk a bit more about your mum, because I know you said that your heroes are Miss Lou, but your other heroes were your parents, both your mum and dad, but especially your mother, Edna Wright, a keen bookworm and co-parent to 9 children. She still had the energy and determination to study in the evenings to become a teacher, and she ended up teaching at your infant school. And she, along with your grandmother and even your brother, one of your brothers, used to recite poetry regularly. And so obviously there's a real clear influence there, but also I think what is lesser known is how prevalent poetry was in Jamaica, in the households. I know Miss Lou had a radio show called Miss Lou's Views. Yeah, exactly. So the fact that your grandmother was reciting poetry, and then your mother, and then you becoming a poet, where does that come from? Why is that so important? Because the fact, I know it's, you said about the role of the Bible and memorizing verses enabled you to do what you do. But what was the connection? What role did it play for them? Because I think it's more than just loving the words, isn't it? It seems like there's a deeper resonance for them.
Yeah, well, it's part of the oral tradition that we share stories and poems and things, stories in the moonlight under the guango tree, that sort of thing. And so they had that background, storytelling background. And in fact, that poem that won the bronze medal came out of a story because we were sitting around telling stories, and I went into my room and started scribbling, and this poem came out. And so it was the rhythms and the culture of sharing, but also the fact that there were, as you mentioned, the Bible, we used to memorize Bible verses at school as well as at home. And so when it came to memorizing poetry, it wasn't so hard because our brains were already in that frame. And so the other thing is that at that time, the way we did poetry in school was we'd go to school, we'd be given a poem to learn overnight, and we'll come back the next day and recite it to the class. And so you sort of get into the habit of learning things like that. And once you start repeating that, so it becomes part of you. And when we're born with this rhythm. And you notice a baby, if you don't rock a baby, they will sit there and rock themselves, toddlers and so on. And as we grow older, we often lose this sense of rhythm. And I'll tell you, I sometimes teach workshops to schools and to adults who want to write and so on. And I often, when I'm teaching, do warm-ups with rhythmic exercises, and it's amazing how bad the adults are. The children not so bad, but you lose it because of all the things you go through as an adult. You forget to be childlike, which is why I enjoy writing for children.
You trained as a teacher back home for 3 years, and then you came to the UK in your early 20s, only to be told that your hard-earned qualification had no weight and that you had to retrain, which you refused. Then you went to university instead, like I mentioned, the University of Kent, to study history with African and Caribbean studies. So having to pivot, because I know you wanted to be a librarian as well, because you're surrounded by books, but you changed your mind about that.
Yeah,
but having to...
once I thought this would be the greatest job because all these books were there. And then when I got to the branch, I realized that I had to lend out these books. And I got so angry when they borrowed books I wanted to read. What to read. So that didn't work out.
So coming here, I was thinking, okay, right, I'm going to be a teacher. And then having to pivot, what did you then think would be your career? And were you feeling that, I feel I want to be a full-time writer? Did you think that was feasible and possible here?
To be honest, when I first came, I was just trying to get accustomed to the place. So I wasn't thinking of a career. I thought, I spent 3 years teaching. My husband is a teacher. He went to university. He only spent 1 year training after that. So I thought, well, I've got more training than he has. So I'm not going to do it again. And maybe he'll kill me, won't he?
No, it's true. And I taught with her in Jamaica. That's how we met. I knew she was a brilliant teacher, and just the indignity of being told that you've got to train to teach again, even though you've trained for 3 years and you've demonstrated huge success as a teacher in one country. The fact that the British system is so arrogant as to say that counts for nothing. Just very dispiriting to think.
And not much has changed. And it's funny because one thing, obviously, you want to pick up with what Miss Lou was saying, you'd think she's talking about now. So exactly about, but obviously that's just that hierarchical in terms of linguistic snobbery, isn't it? Because what can you teach our children, particularly in relation to English? I mean, I read that at one of your first poetry events that you went to, you were shocked that people stood and read from books rather than performed. But you were around and alongside other Caribbean poets like Linton Kwesi Johnson, Jean Binta Breeze. I mean, her first collection came out in '83, and James Berry, and Benjamin Zephaniah. So, I mean, what was the poetry scene like when you arrived? Because like you say, you're steeped in the oral tradition. And what sort of topics did you want to explore? Because you already came armed with some poems from Jamaica.
Yeah. Well, so if we start with when I went to the first poetry reading, I was really excited because, in Jamaica, poetry readings are lively things. And so I sat there, and this person came up and started reading to his book, and completely ignoring the audience. And I was just had my mouth open half the time, and then I nearly fell asleep. So, so I thought, is this what poetry is here? But then, as you mentioned, this was a completely different scene. Yeah, this is how poetry is supposed to be, and so I fitted into that quite easily. Yeah, that was lovely, kindred spirits, and yeah, and then I didn't actually start reading poetry, or I was still writing as a hobby. Although in the back of my mind I still thought I am going to be a writer. But you see, the thing is, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a writer, but I wanted to write novels. I didn't set out to write poetry. Poetry just came by and hijacked the scene. But what happened was, when I came, there was a group of people from Jamaica who had come in the 40s and 50s, and they wanted, it was a Jamaica Society in Manchester, they wanted to sing folk songs, but they'd forgotten the words and stuff, and they said, could you come and help us? And so I went with them, and I taught them these folk songs again, retaught them, and choreographed a bit. And so they would go to other societies and perform. And then they kept being asked all over the country. And so I would go with them, and just to break up the singing, I would do some poems. And then people said, where are the books? And I hadn't thought about a book. So I went to Bogle Overture in Healing, and I was very green, I have to say. I didn't know anything about publishing. So I went with these poems and said to them, I've got these poems, would you like to publish them? Don't laugh. But they said yes, which was amazing. Yeah. But see, the thing is, I still wasn't prepared. I thought, oh, that's lovely. And then when I went home and carried on with life, and then we were going up to Scotland and on holiday, and the night before we left, I had a message from Jessica at Bogle Overture saying, we've been waiting for the poems, where are they? And I hadn't had enough for a book, so I sat up all night writing these poems. And then, yeah, so I actually took some of those poems out of the next edition because obviously they were, I hadn't worked on them to my satisfaction, because I'm a bit of a purist and I have to have things just so, and they weren't quite up to my standard, so I had to take out a lot before we republished the book. But that was the first time, the first book.
And that first book was, that collection was Touch Me, Tell Me.
Touch Me, Tell Me.
And published in 1983. And yeah, like you said, many of the poems were written when you were in Jamaica. Author and genealogist Linford Sweeney said of the collection, this is a book worth having on your shelf. If not to supplement your West Indian literature collection, then as a pathfinder in the search for the acceptance of patois in the wider society.
That was really nice.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I mean, your tenacity led to his publication, and it's funny you say not understanding anything or knowing how the publishing industry works. Not much has changed. People still so you did well. That is the way you need to do it. This collection was followed by Duppy Jamboree and other Jamaican poems. That was published by Cambridge University Press in 1992, described as humorous and exuberant poems for children. Yet, one of the reviews I picked up on Goodreads was from a parent who said, I remember receiving this book as a reward from my literature teacher in high school. And so straight away I'm thinking, is that back home? Because this was back in 2001 or 2002. I've read it so many times, and I even know a few of the poems by heart. Yeah. I would also like to have my children reading it as well. So what struck me was, in terms of your work, how you work, even just the sort of culture that you grew up in, and that link to education, to family, because you did a lot of things communally, even cooking and so on within your family. But like you say, you've written novels, teen, you've written for adults. but the overwhelming focus, your muse, is children. So, I mean, why children? Why are they your focus of literary attention? And you do school visits and so on, but what is it about children? What do you want for them through your work?
I want children who have the same background as mine to value their culture. Because we grew up being told that anything Jamaican was bad and anything English was good. And it's the same thing Louise Bennett said, you know, we go through that because of our history when, you know, and for a long time, if you're being told that over and over, you believe it. And it was only in the 40s or thereabouts when linguists came to Jamaica and found out that this language was a language in its own right, with its own syntax and so on. And so I wanted to let children know that, because when I first came, I was volunteering in a school. I was teaching them Jamaican folk songs and poems and things, and they were going to put on this big concert for the families. And these children are from all over the world, Chinese, Indian, all sorts, right? Everybody. Melting pot. And they were all having a whale of a time. And there was only one girl who said her mother would not allow her to take part because she was too young to talk patois. And that's the idea they came here with, that patois was bad and English was good. And so if you don't have all of your culture, you're only half a person, because that's what makes you. And so she lost out, whereas a little Indian girl was singing, do you know that anybody, all they call Dinah? Dinah, hear me but you won't peek. No? You don't? What? It goes, all they call Dinah, Dinah, hear me but you won't peek. Sake of the pain back me can't limber. Sake of the pain back me can't limber. Me have 5 more miles fi go walk. And she's dressed up as this old woman with her stick. And they were in tears. And if she can do it, she's Indian. It's not. Everybody else can enjoy her culture except us. No, not good.
I want to talk about your process as you write anywhere and everywhere,
Yes.
trains, planes, automobiles, including acting out your poems, then realise that you have an audience. You're a strong believer that poems are designed to be read aloud, and you've said they're as much about sound as they are about the words, so performance and oral delivery are important considerations when I'm writing, to quote you. And you said that sometimes the performance even comes to me before the words, then I find the language to go with the actions. I mean, that just sounds incredibly involved and sensory and almost otherworldly. So do you want to talk a bit more about that?
So because they're performance poems, you're thinking about, they're not finished without the audience. So the audience is a vital part of the poet process. And so in my mind, I'm seeing the audience and seeing what would speak to them. And sometimes it's just a little action that comes to my mind and I find the words to put to it. Sometimes I use music as well, because in our culture, things are not in compartments, like there's dance over there and there's music there and there's poetry there. It's all one big thing. So you're performing, you use music as part of the poetry, you use calls and response, you use all sorts of things. And so often I'm thinking, what part is the audience going to play in this poem? And so I write their part before I write my part. Yeah. So it happens like that sometimes, a backward way of thinking, isn't it? But it works sometimes. And lots of times I have a song, and I'm singing that song over and over, and then I find words to go around the song. Yeah.
So, can I invite you then
Mhm.
for us to have a flavour and a taste of your work and this process? Yeah, the end result of a process that, like you've just described. Yeah.
Okay. This is
Well, you use
Yeah.
that word because you told me, oh, how much time do I have? I can do half an hour. And I
okay,
said, no, you've got
alright.
10 minutes.
Well-
so, whatever, so whatever you want to do, yeah.
Well, because I write for
Yeah.
children. I write for children, so I'm going to do the first one for children, yeah?
Mhm.
And this is one which is quite popular in schools, so. Before I do that, I have to say, how many people here speak Patois then? One? All right, okay. Well, since you don't, how would you like to learn to speak Patois? Excellent. So, the language, I have to tell you, was made up very quickly during slavery, because people were not allowed to keep their own languages from Africa, so they had to pick up this. And so, so it's mainly English or come from English, these words, but the way we put them into sentences is West African. Yeah, and some of the words are West African. So what I'm going to do is, as I do for the children, is just give you a flavor. And so I'm going to go through parts of the body, and if you repeat the words, then it's easier for you to remember, yeah? So if we start with parts of the body, in English we say I, in Jamaican we say yai. Can you say yai?
Yai.
And we don't say one yai or two yais because we don't add s or es. We make plurals by adding them. So, or a number. So you say your yai and your yai them. Or else you put a number in front of it and you say one yai, two yai, three yai, four yai, and so on. When you cry in English, should I stand up so people are not craning their necks down? In English, what was I saying? Oh yeah. When you cry, in English you cry tears, yeah? In Jamaican you cry yai water. I need you to say the word so I know you're learning. Right. Now, if you have a word that starts with H in English, in Jamaican you drop the H. So instead of hair we say, instead of head we say, instead of happy we say,
Happy.
instead of hand we say,
And
no we don't. The other thing you do in Jamaican is if you have two consonants together at the end of a word, you drop the last consonant. So instead of hand, we say, and mouth would be mouth. If you have a word that starts with TH, you do two things. If it's THE, you change the TH to D. So instead of them, we say
them.
And if we have a word that starts with if it's not where are we? If it's not TH, we change the we drop the H, right? If it's a consonant. So instead of three, for instance, thank you, we say
Tree.
Exactly. And so sometimes you have to look at the context to know what we're talking about, whether it's a tree out there or them, okay, and so on. The word for this is nose, because the vowels are much broader than in English. And these are your not nostrils, but nose hole.
Nose.
These are your yes, and in there that's your yes hole. And if a Jamaican says your yes hole too hard, it means you're very obstinate and you won't listen when people talk to you. The word for girl is gyal. Can you say gyal?
Yeah.
Boy is boy. Child is picnic. Cat is puss. Dog is dog. Owl is patu. Mouse is mus. There are some words which are not words, they're just sounds. So if you want to say yes, you say or If you want to say no, you say or If you want to say who do you think you are, you say Can you say Yeah, you have to do the look as well, otherwise you won't work. And if you want to say fancy that, you say, that's it, you see, just one more. And there are some words which are not words or sounds, they're just body language. So if you want to show that you're upset or you're fed up or you're angry, you do two things. You either cut your eye, which is looking people up and down like that, and you go like that. Or you kiss your teeth, which means you pull the ear through the sides of your mouth, you purse your lips, and you go, hey, you know it. And then if you're really, really angry or upset, or you want to just belittle people really badly, then you look them up and down, and you do both together, and you can add other body language, there you go. And the longer you draw it out, the littler they become. All right, so we only have 10 minutes, so
No,
I'll do
take the time.
I'll do a couple of poems. One children's poem, as I said. This is called Sandwich. And, oh wow, somebody knows Sandwich.
Yes.
So this is a poem about a boy who's going on a trip, a school trip. And he's going to take lunch with him, a sandwich. But we used to go on school trips. And where I lived in Jamaica, very rural, right in the middle of Jamaica in Clarendon. So when we went on school trips, we either went to the seaside or we went to Kingston, the capital. And we loved to go to Kingston because then we would go to the factories. And if we went to the ice cream factory, it was big tubs of ice cream free. And if we went to the chocolate factory, we'd get big bars of chocolate free. And if we went to the sweet factory, we'd get big bags of sweets free. And if we went to the rum factory, we'd get big bottles. But we used to take lunch, but we didn't take sandwiches because we didn't go very much for sandwiches. We used to take things like fried chicken and rice and peas and hard-dough bread. I just got a hard-dough bread from my good friend here. I haven't had one for ages because I haven't been to Brixton for ages, so that's where I do my shopping, proper shopping here. But anyway, so we take callaloo. Anybody knows callaloo? Yeah, and all that sort of thing, and fruit juices. Yeah, and so this boy is going to take a sandwich, but his grandmother, who comes from Jamaica, thinks it's a very bad idea. At the end of each of the verses, there's the word sandwich. So when I do that, I like it to say sandwich. Can we have a run through? Sandwich. We're going on a school trip today. The whole class going to Whitney Bay. I'm taking my bat and ball with me to play beach cricket. And let me see. I mustn't forget my new frisbee, and teacher said to bring a sandwich. She said to bring a waterproof bag and a change of clothes in a knapsack. For it bound to rain, she guaranteed. And halfway we're going to end up in the sea. And we mustn't forget, anyway, teacher said to bring a sandwich. She said we can bring a can of drink, so I'm going to bring some fizzy orange, I think. Some gobstoppers I can share with Lee, and everybody else probably. An apple and an orange, and I definitely won't forget to bring a sandwich. I asked my mother for some bread, some butter, lettuce, and some cheddar cheese. Don't want nothing more. And I'm just heading for the door when I bump into my Granny Lenore, and she take away me sandwich. She said, don't know what your mother thinking about. How she could make a growing child go out with one little sandwich alone to eat. Don't you worry, child. In this basket I have corn pone, chicken, and jerk meat. You don't need to take a sandwich. I said to her, you don't understand. I can't take all of them things, Gran. Everybody will laugh at me. She said, I make your favorite fricassee. I said, Gran, teacher specifically said that we must bring a sandwich. But she not listen to a thing me say. She was past me, and then she bring out a bowl of rice and peas. A whole hard-dough bread, if you please. I was down on the floor on my hands and knees begging, give me back me sandwich. Then go and take out a thermos flask. I shut my mouth, afraid to ask. But I wonder what else she would have produced. She said, I'll make you some nice soursop juice. So give me that fizzy nonsense, that's no use. And she take it just like me sandwich. I said, Gran, you have enough to feed the whole class, dear. She said, that is right, you must learn to share. I'll make something special for your teacher too. And she take out a bowl of callaloo. I asked myself, what am I going to do? I only want to take a sandwich. Well, no matter how me big and plead, she was like a mad bull pan stampede. So with chicken and rice and hard-dough bread, my heart and foot them heavy like lead, I waved goodbye to my street cred and left without me sandwich. All day long I tried to pretend I didn't know that basket. But in the end, lunchtime come and we all get around, spread some blanket on the ground, and everybody settled down to open up them sandwich. Teacher said, what have you got there? I pretend I didn't hear. But that basket wouldn't go away, so I open it and start to pray that I wouldn't laugh too loud when I display what I bring instead of sandwich. Well, everybody I start pop out. My friend Lee start to lick him out. So I asked them if them all want some. Them look for me like semi-dumb. And in no time we finish every crumb and them all forget them sandwich. When teacher said, thank your grandmother for us, I feel so proud and nearly bust. She said, that was a really super meal. Everybody said, yeah, that was well cool, Neil. And you don't know how glad I feel that I didn't bring a sandwich. And this one, because we were talking about Louise Bennett, this is one from my Louise Bennett period. So it's, how many of you have passed your driving test the first time?
Yes.
Show off. I'm writing this because a friend of mine a long time ago recounted her driving test, but also because I didn't pass first time. It was not my fault, mind you, it was the instructor. No. I have to sit down for this, sorry. Me this I come back from a driving test. No, me never pass, me fail. I make you see me sit down here like a dog with last in tail. And it's not like so me can't drive, you know. For when me get round that steering wheel, when me leg out the clutch and press the brake, you want to hear the car wheel squeal. But me don't know what happened to me today. For as the examiner come in at the car, me need them start on a piece and knocking. Me say, we not go far. Favor the car, find out so me nervous. Far as me tap on the gas pedal, man, the same thing take off down the road on a speed. Me have to jump on the brake and say, come back here. The car stops sudden. Me say, thank the Lord. Then me see the examiner not in a seat. Me I wonder where my get up go when me see him head and the windscreen meet. Me don't know if nobody not tell him say if he wear seat belt when he dep on the road. But me dear, when him open him mouth, you wouldn't find them the word in no highway code. Well, when him calm down, me start the car again, for by this time it stalled. And you know the wicked examiner sit down there and couldn't tell me what go on at all. About 10 minutes later, me find out so me did left the handbrake on. I mean, I know which idiot plant the lamppost in the middle of the road. The man said, take the next left. Me say, all right, concentrate hard. Me make a pretty turn, you see, ma'am. The man asked me what me I do in my people in the yard. All right, me say me going back out. But to tell you the truth, me not too good on the reverse. Me hear something go croops, the car and the gate post, ma'am. But when me see the damage, me say it could have worse, so me drive go along. Me see the man write something in a little book. Me say if I me my right bout, me want to know. So me lean over to take a little look. Me say, a one little minute, me take me eye off of the road, you know. Boy, me I tell you, me can really drive for when me see the bridge around come meet me. Me never know we could have still alive. Me blow the horn and twist the wheel. The bridge gallop come same way. Me couldn't do nothing else, so me just clasp my hand them and get ready for pray. It looked like say the examiner did take over, cause when me open me eye, me see the man a crawl out through the door. Me feel say somebody trouble him this morning. For me know say me driving was a first class. But he never have a galang, so when me ask him if me pass.
You said I write my politics rather than speak it, so people can take it or leave it. There's a way, because poetry is political and it's protest, so can be, but there's different ways of expressing that. So I'm curious, you know, the fact you've made a choice, so how does that then come through your work? How conscious a process is that?
Yes,
and what is empowering that for you? Yeah.
That's another point I wanted to say. So thank you for that, because I used when I was here, of course, people were going through all these atrocities, but a lot of the poets were just shouting about it, right? And when you shout at people, they don't listen. They just turn off, mainly. That's what I found. Anyway, so I thought, I'm not going to write any of these protest poems. And then I thought, there's another way to say it. If you speak softly, they'll have to strain to listen. They will listen to you. If you shout at them, they turn off. So I use irony, and I'll demonstrate that. There's a poem I wrote called You Hear About, and it goes, you hear about the people them arrest for burn down the Asian people them house. You hear about the policeman them lock up for beat up the black boy without a cause. You hear about the MP them sack because they refuse to help in black constituents in them fight against deportation. You not hear about them? Me neither.
Usually I round it up, but I think I can't follow that. I cannot, and I think that's the perfect way to end. And thank you for your service and continued service. And it's been a pleasure listening to you and talking with you. Thank you so much, Valerie.